Good evening, good people. My name is Prince Zachariah. You're watching Probe. Probe is your most authoritative and reliable consumer watchdog, which is hinged on compliance, public safety, and quality assurance. Today, we are discussing urban road safety. And with me to do that is Mr. Kwame Etuahene, the Communications Director of the National Road Safety Commission. We'll take a commercial break, and when we are back, we will delve straight into the discussion.
For sales and service, visit Japan Motors on the Graphic Rail in Accra or any of our showrooms nationwide, or call 0302-682-223 or 0302-682-220.
Oh, so this is the project, eh?
Oh, yeah. Now, what's left is the wiring.
Critical. Massa, wiring there. Go for the best.
Let's go.
Hey! Sana head don't die like that. Look, you've made the best choice. I know because I use tropical cable when I put out my place. Massa, with tropical, if it be fire,
It no be the wire.
if it be best quality cable, if it tropical.
And now, the Den, my sports center. Just for boys.
Nice one.
Flat screen TV, home theater set, air conditioner, bar, whatever.
Just here.
That's why from town to city, city to country, and country to continent, many more people are saying yes to tropical cable. For quality cables and also switches, sockets, and accessories no matter the job, use tropical cable. Locally made, internationally certified. Tropical Cable and Conductor Limited. Topapa Preku. Invest in the best.
You are welcome back. With us to discuss urban road safety is Mr. Kwame Etuahene, the Communications Director of the National Road Safety Commission. Boss, you are welcome.
Thanks for having me, my brother. Statistics
we have here is alarming. A total of 2,076 people died in road traffic accidents in 2017. This is 8 people less than the 2,084 people killed in 2016. We can't keep on having this. It is a bad trend. However, let us have a look at this brief documentary.
The N4, which begins at the Tetteh Quarshie Interchange in Accra and travels north running by the University of Ghana at Legon, is one of the most unsafe roads in the capital. Continuing north to Madina, the N4 intersects with the R40 near the Madina Police Station and veers slightly northwest towards Oyarifa before entering the eastern region. Since its completion some 3 years ago, the N4 highway is left without a single pedestrian footbridge, as all 5 footbridges dotted between Pantang Junction and the University of Ghana Legon remain uncompleted. School children and other pedestrians risk their lives daily as they cross the highway amidst fast-moving vehicles. Parts of the road are marred by concrete droppings from heavy-duty mobile concrete mixers. This phenomenon has become a growing and worrying trend nowadays, with authorities showing no concern whatsoever. At the Tetteh Quarshie Interchange, this footbridge has become very useful for most pedestrians. However, some pedestrians refuse to use it and scramble with fast-moving vehicles over road space. Surroundings of the footbridge remain untidy. In contrast, the N1, which stretches from the Tetteh Quarshie Interchange to Pantang Junction, has 6 completed footbridges. However, Most of them are not advantageously positioned to serve the interest of pedestrians, hence they remain unused. The N1 is not spared of concrete droppings from heavy-duty concrete mixers. The entire stretch from Pantang Junction to English Amanfrom has no road markings, road signposts, and street lights, which has rendered it a highly risky road. Street lights along the Kanda Highway through Kintakiteria overpass to the Electra Commission Interchange are not functioning. The Kwame Nkrumah motorway and most parts of the Spinters Road have no street lights. The Liberation Road, which bounds the Flagstaff House, the seat of government of the Republic of Ghana, has no functioning street light across the entire stretch. Indeed, urban road safety in Accra remains in limbo at this current state.
You are welcome back. This program is brought to you by kind courtesy Japan Motors. Japan Motors, driven by excellence. And Tropical Cable and Conductors, Topapa Prekon, as well as Best Western Premier Hotel. Mr. Tuahine, with those statistics, your commission or your agency, National Road Safety Commission, has been working around the clock to ensure the safety of pedestrians or road users in general. How did we get here?
Well, I think that, good evening to your viewers. I think that we are all a part of where you unfortunately find ourselves at this point. Safety, as we have said time without number, is a shared responsibility. Everybody who gets into the environment ought to know the practices, the behavior which are risky and have the tendency to take life and also get us into one injury or the other. But we are where we are today because for one reason or the other, all of us as road users have taken to the path of indiscipline other than taking to the path of a better use of the road. And essentially why we are where we are today. It's not any pleasant situation. But again, if you look at the trend, you realize that there are some marginal reductions, even though they may not be very significant. But the fact is that every day we continue to lose lives. 6 people a day, 150 on the average a month, and the average 2,000 a year. Again, we need to look at it within a certain context, which is that without the contributions that we bring to bear, without the coordination that we try to do on one hand or the other, without the public awareness campaigns that we carry out, the reality is that the situation could have been worse. I mean, we could be recording more than 2,076 in a year. We could be recording in excess of 12,000 injuries thereabout in a year. We are not happy where we are.
You say it could have been worse. In 2017, it was 2,076. 8 less 2,084. That is what the death recorded in 2016. If your communication, education, public awareness campaign and all that had really gone down so well, how come even a single life is not worth losing? How come only 8 between 2016 and 2017? You think your message really went down well?
Yes, you see, on a yearly basis, this year, our vehicle numbers probably have gone up by 12%. You have a police to citizen ratio to 1 policeman to about 780 citizens. The commission, the total staff strength is less than 100. Look at the volumes of vehicles, the volumes of drivers that you have on the road. But we try within the constraints of these agencies to try to keep one interface or the other. Today, if you went to any of my regional office, we could show you evidence of a regular interface with drivers or with pedestrians or with passengers, meeting churches, market women, having this engagement or the other. There's been a recent study which says that awareness levels, today, the level of awareness as far as road safety is concerned, is in excess of 80%. So Ghanaians are pretty much aware the kinds of things they do which leads to loss of lives. So in terms of awareness, yes, I could authoritatively say that today many people have become aware of the risky factors that lead to deaths or injuries. Today, many people are pretty much aware of the Commission, DVLA, MTTD, the agencies, and what all of them are supposed to do. The difficulty, the challenge we've had to contend with over time, I believe, is that to do with indiscipline. Because the Ghanaian who finds pleasure in disregarding all the safety protocols here in Ghana will comply with all those protocols when he moves neighboring Togo. So why is it the case that when we are in Ghana, we find pleasure to do all the wrong things? But if we happen to find ourselves in other environments, we become compliant. Even within Ghana, if you drive around Accra, for instance, motor riders, it's as if they have been told that the traffic signals don't work. But move up north, go to Tamale, go to Boga, go to Wa, they comply with these traffic signals. So there's a bit to do with our attitude and the general sense of indiscipline.
Yes, we'll continue. We'll continue from there. If you consider the stretch, the documentary we just watched, between Mensa and then University of Ghana, there are about 5 pedestrian walkways, bridges that are supposed to be erected. Yeah. These bridges, since somewhere 2012, thereabout when the road construction was completed, these bridges have been left uncompleted, and it also accounts to the number of pedestrians knocked along that stretch. Yeah. And if viewers, you consider this, I have with me here the regional breakdown of pedestrians killed. For Greater Accra region, we have 238 killed in 2017. Tema, Accra alone 238, Tema 61. Eastern region 131. We are concerned today about Accra, so we are looking at the stretch. Okay. And we don't have, before this production, we couldn't ascertain the exact figure that were involved in accidents along that stretch. But Mr. Tuahini, you agree with me so much that those bridges, their incompletion has also contributed to accidents along that stretch.
Well, to some extent.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, viewers. We were expecting Mr. Abbas Ahulu of the Department of Urban Roads to have joined us, analyze these stretches of road we are discussing here. Mr. Tuahini, you agree with me so much. I believe your commission has been doing good work so far as your mandate is concerned. However, if you have poor designs that do not inure to the safety of road users, you surely will keep recording this death, no matter the awareness, the public education you embark on.
I agree with you. I mean, indeed, if you look at the data over time, the most vulnerable class of road users are not the drivers, they are not the passengers. They fall within the pedestrian user class. I mean, if you rank deaths per user class every year, a significant number of pedestrians are killed. Unfortunately, because they are knocked down and killed in isolation, one here, two there, one there, yeah. They don't generate as much attention as the other class. But it's such a concern. And pedestrian vulnerability and the design, I think in some regard, they are somehow connected. Unfortunately, if you look at the way our cities and country are planned elsewhere, schools are designed in such a way that communities or school kids may not have to cross the road from one end to the other. Unfortunately, we do not appear to factor those concerns pretty much into our design. All of us make mistakes. The driver makes mistakes, and his mistakes may lead to loss of lives. I believe strongly that the engineer who designs the road is also prone to mistakes. So if there are engineering defects in road designs, there's a likelihood that they may endanger our lives as road users. For some time, the Commission has been advocating strongly for what it calls the road safety audit, which is that before a road is designed or constructed, the Commission should have an opportunity to look at the design and say that within the Madina environment or within the stretch, for this road to be safer, you may need X number of pedestrian crossing points and X number of footbridges, pedestrian crossing points at particular locations, because the road must always take into account the user behavior. I mean, you should be able to determine exactly where there's a high concentration of human traffic to determine where it to be convenient for the user to cross from one point or the other. And at the construction stage, you continue to do your audit until the road is completed and made accessible to the public. Unfortunately, for the current mandate of the Commission, even though we get the opportunity to make an input here and there as far as the design and safety features of the roads are concerned, I mean, they stop at the point of recommendation. I mean, you make recommendations and the decision is entirely in the hands of the agency responsible for the road to implement or not. And that we must concede is a gap. I mean, elsewhere, no new road is allowed for public access without a safety certificate, for instance. So an agency should be ready to run the road and say that, okay, if you fail to provide the line markings, if the crossing points in these and that locations are not made available, it will be injurious for public use. So those facilities must be provided before the roads become accessible. Unfortunately, in Ghana, I think that it's one of the important and very serious gaps that we contend with, which all of us as road users must begin to have a discussion around in order for us to make a significant impact. Otherwise, I agree that if the design of the road where pedestrian crossing points have not been provided, where footbridges have not been completed, the roads are meant for public use. You need to cross from one point to the other. And if those facilities are not there, the human mind has a tendency to cross anyway, and you put your life at risk in your effort to try to use the road from one point or the other, and that is a problem. The other side of it is that on some stretches you have the facilities being provided. If you go to Shashi, there's a footbridge there, Malam,
which was done recently.
Yes. But you actually
Peter, too, a lot of lives have been lost.
Yeah, we agree with you, and I think we take pride that what we have there, out of serious advocacy from institutions like the Commission and other aligned agencies. You see, until recently, we didn't appear to pay much attention to the pedestrian. And that's a point I made, that the focus has been on passengers, because a newspaper is likely to scream a VIP or STC related accident to have killed about 50 lives. But the reality today is that 38% of all those who
Mr.
die are
Chiahine,
pedestrians.
you
They are
see,
not passengers.
Viewers, I am much disappointed the Urban Roads Department rep is not here. It looks as if roads are constructed, they are left like that, or they do, just as you stated, they just decide to construct as it suits them. There is a new trend coming up. If you take the stretch we've watched, you realize that those heavy-duty concrete mixers, as they move along, concrete droplets hits the road, and they become of nuisance to vehicular movement, puncture tires here and there. And nobody seemed to care. Everybody is watching till something happens. You understand? All this contributes to the lack of safety on our roads. So no matter the efforts put in by your commission, we will come back to nil.
Yes, I mean, you are right. And that's why there's an advocacy for us to have a renewed mandate, so that we can begin to play a certain role that is strong on standards, compliance, and regulation. If, for instance, you use a motorway, I mean, when we talk about good roads...
It's a death trap.
Yes, good roads does not necessarily mean new roads. I mean, the roads may be new, but bad.
Do not have safety.
They don't have line markings, they don't have pedestrian crossing points, and so on and so forth. So you need to get to a stage where you have a body that has the responsibility to say that this road is not high on safety, so it should not be made accessible to the public until XYZ has been provided. I think when we are able to get to that stage, then these agencies of state that have responsibility to build the roads will begin to do one thing or the other right. Oftentimes, when roads are being constructed and you have the tendency to push for safety issues, the funding excuse always comes up. Okay, there's no money. And so the safety aspects of the road often get sacrificed, unfortunately. So the footbridge that has to be provided may be sacrificed. Or the
crash lanes,
and we must move from that subculture. Again, in other areas, if you decide to do a 10-kilometer stretch of road, and very expensive, and that road turns out to be unsafe, you may decide that for safety reasons, I'll do 8 kilometers, but not 10. Yes. So that the cost in getting the 2 kilometers up may fairly accommodate
safety
considerations. Yeah. But serious advocacy, I believe, with platforms like yours and other well-meaning platforms may begin to shape our thought process.
Yes, it is time, viewers, it is time you talk to this and demand leadership, those in power, those who have been mandated to do the right thing, the needed. You can't construct such a stretch of road from Ayimensa towards University of Ghana or to Tetteh Quarshie and have all those bridges left there. Nobody seemed to care. People keep dying, crossing the road each day. We can't leave those bridges there. School children keep crossing. I believe at the policy level, there should be a collaborative measure between your agency and that of the Urban Roads Department. And so if there is such, have you been raising such issues there?
Yes, I mean, they are one of our stakeholder, very strong stakeholder institutions. I mean, we interface with them very regularly. I mean, on a quarterly basis, we have meetings to look at what they have done and raise some of these concerns that may have come to us from the public and out of our monitoring to them. In fact, every 2 years, we have what we call the Road Safety Action Plan, where these agencies, based on data, come to say that in Accra we want to do X number of pedestrian crossing points, for instance. We want to raise one footbridge or the other. But oftentimes we have found the excuse not to do one nor the other because of funding. Maybe the excuse may be genuine, maybe it may not. We talk about road fund, the tolls we pay. Others have said, yes, it's intended to assist in these kinds of works. But in actual fact, monies that accrue from these funds may be very insignificant given the level of work that must be done. But I strongly think that regardless, we must begin to prioritize these concerns. Others have shown their way that for every road infrastructure budget, you must set aside some 10% for safety-related infrastructure. In other countries, yesterday there was a discussion about Nigeria, that if you drive around Nigeria, you have public-spirited individuals and persons who have taken the trouble to build bridges, for instance. And in return, they get naming rights for them. So we could have a Prince Zach bridge at the Madina area to be named after you for God knows how many years. I think for those who have the resources to help the state to provide these level of facilities, we should create the environment to accommodate such support.
We'll take a commercial break, and then when we are back, we'll look at road signs along this stretches of roads we are considering today. Do we have them? Have they faded? Who cares? Is your safety, my safety and your safety really a matter that those in powers that be are concerned about? This program is brought to you by kind courtesy Japan Motors driven by excellence, and Tropical Cable and Conductors, Topapa Precon, as well as Best Western Premier Hotel. We'll be right back.
Dusty. Oh, so this is the project, eh?
Oh, yeah. Now, what's left is the wiring.
Critical. Massa, wiring there. Go for the best.
Let's go.
Hey! Son, I head don't die like that. Look, you've made the best choice. I know because I use tropical cable when I put out my place. Massa, with tropical, if it be fire,
it no be the wire.
If it be best quality cable, it be tropical.
And now, the Den, my sports center. Just for boys.
Nice one.
Flat screen TV, home theater set, air conditioner, bar, whatever.
Dusty, eh?
That's why from town to city, city to country, and country to continent, many more people are saying yes to tropical cable. For quality cables and also switches, sockets, and accessories no matter the job, use tropical cable. Locally made, internationally certified. Tropical Cable and Conductor Limited. Topapa Preku. Invest in the best.
For sales and service, visit Japan Motors on the Graphic Road in Accra or any of our showrooms nationwide, or call 0302 682 223 or 0302 682 220.
You are welcome back. You are watching Probe. My name is Prince Zakaria. Probe is your most authoritative and reliable consumer watchdog, which is hinged on compliance, public safety, and quality assurance. Our guest is Mr. Kwame Etuahene, the Communications Director of the National Road Safety Commission. Mr. Etuahene, we have narrowed on these roads in Accra because what is happening, the road safety measures along them are a microcosm of what is happening in the entire country. As for the motorway, we will not go there because it is a death trap. if you consider Malam Junction to English Amanfro, the entire stretch has no road markings. The entire stretch, I mean. Pedestrian cross markings are gone. Yeah. They're all faded. You will hardly find road signs, you know, the speed limit signs and so on, ramps and so on. You hardly find them there. All these account to safety along the road. So if you have all these gone, and your commission, for instance, keep doing your parts, advocacy, awareness creation, and all that, and it is somebody's duty, it is the business of the Department of Urban Roads to provide all these for us. We don't have them. Street lights aren't working. Viewers, check your electricity bills. You realize there is a part that indicates your contribution to street lighting along our roads. We don't find them along this stretch. Mr. Tuahene, what is happening? Are we being taken for a ride?
Well, as I said from the beginning, the responsibility must be shared. But I agree in essence that these signs are for a purpose. They are not just intended to beautify the roads, if you like, but they serve very important.
Let me add this.
Safety
elsewhere in other jurisdictions, if lives as much as 2,076 are lost in a year, you come to the next year, previous year you lose 2,084. The next year you lose 2,076. The only difference is 8. Somebody's job will be at the offing. Somebody will have to lose job. But here in this country, people are at post. No road signs, no markings, no street lights, and people are at post.
Yes, that's the point I was making, that the responsibility is shared. There are agencies that have one share of the responsibility or the other. And to put it right, I mean, there's no country in this world where safety has been achieved by just educating alone.
No, certainly not.
I mean, it doesn't happen. It hasn't happened yet anywhere. There must be a perfect mix of the 4 E's: education, enforcement, engineering, and emergency services. Today, if you went to National Ambulance Service, chances are that you have just about 30 or 40 of ambulance ready and active on the roads. These road signs, I agree perfectly that they serve a purpose. To the extent they are not there, everybody who runs those roads is endangered. You survive probably by grace or by being very careful. But a lot also depends on us. I mean, we need to get to a stage where we have a very engaged citizenry, citizens that are willing, are very much in tune with their rights. I mean, it doesn't ask much to pay for street lights without them being provided. They ought to be provided, especially when they have been paid for. Road signs, as I said, line markings, oftentimes, if you look back, it has always been a question of resources. But we must find a creative way. And elsewhere, people have said, okay, safety is that important. So for every road infrastructure project, we want to dedicate 10% of the budget to help address these concerns. We must begin to have a certain discussion on the national level for us to take decisions that impact on our safety. Because at the end of the day, if you make all the good roads, you provide the schools, jobs, the roads are unsafe, it doesn't help anyone.
At all.
It gives you such a negative image.
You will have also noticed this trend. It is so common those days to find almost every 4-wheel drive blaring siren, and then its hazards on driving on the shoulders of the road. What happens? Why?
Discipline. I personally,
next time, viewers will engage the personnel from the MTTD who will talk so much to this.
But personally, I have taken in traffic, I've taken the trouble to take numbers, sometimes take shots.
Yes, I have done.
And reported. Take the next step to. You see, sirens, the law allows it, but it says that it must be used for. It must be used when emergency situations arise, and they are. The law is careful to spell out who can use or cannot use. But again, the sheer level of indiscipline that we have in our country, I think we must begin to approach that with a certain level of interest. It's only when we are able to get a hold on that situation, because many of these vehicles appear to be privately owned. Some do not work with any of these emergency services. For failing to wake up early to make an appointment, the guy decides to inconvenience the other road user, a pedestrian whose area of the road is the shoulder. So you deny him the opportunity to use, and where does he have to use? But we have become so indisciplined not to even appreciate these matters. But that same Ghanaian in Togo will do all the right things, but you just can't figure out why within the confines of our country it is so difficult for us to be law-abiding.
Viewers, you are watching Probe. Probe is your most reliable and authoritative consumer watchdog, which is hinged on compliance, public safety, and quality assurance. We are discussing urban road safety, and with me doing this is Mr. Kwame Etuahene, the Communications Director of the National Road Safety Commission. This program is brought to you by kind courtesy of Japan Motors driven by excellence, Tropical Cable and Conductors, Top Papa Precon, and Best Western Premier Hotel.
For sales and service, visit Japan Motors on the Graphic Road in Accra or any of our showrooms nationwide, or call 0302 682 223 or 0302 682 220.
Oh, so this is the project, eh?
Oh, yeah. Now, what's left is the wiring.
Critical. Massa, wiring there. Go for the best.
Let's go.
Hey, Sana head don't die like that. Look, you've made the best choice. I know because I use tropical cable when I put out my place. Massa, with tropical, if it be fire,
It no be the wire.
if it be best quality cable, if it tropical.
And now, the Den, my sports center. Just for boys.
Nice one.
Flat screen TV, home theater set, air conditioner, bar, whatever.
Just here.
That's why from town to city, city to country, and country to continent, many more people are saying yes to tropical cable. For quality cables and also switches, sockets, and accessories no matter the job, use tropical cable. Locally made, internationally certified. Tropical Cable and Conductor Limited. Topapa Preku. Invest in the best.
To wrap up, Mr. Chuahine, another thing that you mentioned earlier is so common in Accra. Riders paying no heed to traffic light regulation or traffic lights. They get to traffic intersections, whether it's red, yellow, green, to them it's green.
It's such a major concern. You see, the last 10 years, deaths that have occurred as a result of motorbikes have gone up by 400% the last 10 years. Today, yes.
You find police officers even also
today,
doing this.
many riders are getting killed even more than passengers. It's such a big problem. And it's just about complying with the traffic signals. If you went up north, they may have problems with wearing of helmets, but they are abiding. I mean, when they get to the traffic light, they stop. It's such a concern. In fact, we have engaged the police over these matters. Last year, there was a team that was put together to go to Rwanda, because we are told that in Rwanda, there's a certain experience that we must see, that these guys, most of whom provide commercial service or Okada, quote unquote, there's been a way to
streamline the
regulate the operations. In the West African sub-region, we have been strongly advised that if we haven't allowed for their legal operations, we should be careful, because in Nigeria, in Sierra Leone, in Benin, it's getting out of hands. So there's a team that has been put together to try to focus some attention on this motorbike issue. I'm sure in the course of time, the public will be engaged.
Mr. Tiahine, there is one thing, there is a missing gap in our road transport management in this country. I have personally written to the transport minister and copied the vice president on this. We lack a national road transport authority. We don't have that kind of body. Maritime authority takes care of maritime, civil aviation takes care of the aviation industry. We need a road transport regulatory authority that will harmonize the operations of all transport, commercial transport operators and all those. If we were to have such agency, I think the road toll levy, halabalu wouldn't have come in like that. Today, if you pick your private vehicle, just have it sprayed in taxi colors, and you are good to operate taxi. Go to the assembly, get the stickers, get sticker here and there. Uber is operating. Under what regulatory framework? We don't have it. And this country, viewers, we can't continue like this. If we keep on like this, we will be dying so fast. It doesn't happen in other jurisdictions. Let us not even talk about the West. You mentioned Rwanda. Go to Togo, go to Benin. They are very disciplined on the road. And this comes to pedestrians as well. We other road users, the non-driving road users, we are so much in discipline. Mr. Tiahine, your final words.
Well, I think that you are right on the gap in the transport environment. The guys who use the road must behave just as the guy who fly airspace. If you are a pilot,
if a pilot commits a degree, an iota of mistake,
yes, you are off. If your aircraft is not safety compliant, you don't get on the tarmac. But concedingly, within the road environment, there's a huge gap. I think the Ministry of Transport is focused on fixing that gap. The issue has been whether to set up a new agency to perform such a responsibility or to assign the existing agencies, maybe DVLA or the Road Safety Commission, to provide that gap. Yeah. But at either way we look at it, I believe the ministry will show leadership and try to address that gap. But in summing up, I think safety is everybody's concern. It affects domestic economies. Today, many men are getting killed, leaving our women's widows with a lot of children, dependents. Significant numbers are between the productive age bracket, between 18 and 55.
Okay, this is all time will allow us. Thank you so much, Mr. Tiahine, for coming. Viewers, you've been watching Probe, your most reliable and authoritative consumer watchdog, which is hinged on compliance, public safety, and quality assurance. I'm your host, Prince Zakaria. Make a date with us again, same channel, same time, next time. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.